just a couple seconds here. And Todd, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our next in the series of Ask Set Anythings. This is a session focused on our human resources colleagues across the organization, and so very happy to have those of you that are on Zoom with us, as well as on the live broadcast. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Todd Gilchrist. I'm the Vice President of University Services and Finance, and have the honor of being the executive sponsor for the SET project. So thank you, everybody, for joining today. Appreciate you making the time available, and are looking forward to some great conversation this afternoon. First, I just want to acknowledge, as we go into today's session, that change, as we're going through in our organization, can be a challenge, particularly when all the details are not yet known. It is our goal today to continue to open up the lines of communication as we talk today about the administrative restructuring process and how that will involve our HR functions across the organization. And so we will work to ensure that higher level of communication today. And as I mentioned, look forward to your questions and the panel's answers. The changes are significant. I know that they affect each of you. And while the new operating model will work to ensure that we can operate effectively and efficiently within our new budget reality, it's beyond that a very important goal for us to create a vibrant and healthy working environment that works to provide staff with meaningful work, engaging experiences, and fulfilling career paths. And I hope that we'll talk a little bit more about how that can be realized today. We know that each of you provides an important and meaningful function, work, serving, whether it be a faculty or a unit or a portfolio, staff, students, faculty members. And your valuable contributions are greatly appreciated to the success of the organization in the past, present, and future. Some of you will likely have questions about moving into either service partner positions, or maybe a role in the centers of expertise, the staff or student centers, or the transaction hub. And I'd like to reassure you that there will be many opportunities in moving into a central role, and that there will be opportunities for career growth and development for our HR professionals and folks within that stream. Throughout our model implementation process, or the implementation of our operations model, we commit to continuing to share timely, transparent, and truthful information about the plan and the steps that we're taking and where we're at in that process. Do want to reiterate, you've heard me probably say this before, or Rob or others, not all the answers are known yet, and there's some reasons for that. It's because we're still in the functional review process, and I'm happy to answer any questions that may come up later today around how that process works and that project plan ultimately moves us forward. But we are certainly going to endeavor to answer as many of your questions today as we can. If we don't have answers for those, we will commit to getting back. I'll be acting as the moderator for today's session. To help facilitate your questions, we've brought together a panel to help with the answers and providing some of that context on the HR stream. And before we get started, I would just like to quickly introduce you to our panel. We will start with Demetres Tryphonopoulos, our Dean and Executive Officer at Augustana campus. Demetres is also our academic co-sponsor of the Human Resources Workstream. We have with us today Wayne Patterson, our Associate Vice President of Human Resources, Health, Safety, and Environment, and along with Demetres is the administrative co-sponsor of the Human Resources Workstream. Rob Munro, our Executive Lead of Service Excellence Transformation, or our SET initiative. Brian Stewart, our Program Director, Administrative Transformation under the SET initiative. Susan Underhill, Project Manager for the HR Functional Review Stream. Annette McPherson, HR Specialist Lead on the SET team. And Cheryl Earle, Shared Services Initiative Lead on our SET team. So thank you to our panelists for being here, and we'll look forward to hearing you engage with our attendees today. We'll start with the first slide, please. So we'll go to the next slide. Yeah, there we go. Excellent. Thank you. So we're going to talk today about human resources, and I wanted to just set the stage before I turn it over to Wayne around how the new service delivery model, our operations model sets up. Wayne will take us down into the next level to talk about human resources. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. I just want to point out the areas, if you will, that we are all becoming more familiar with. We have our service partners up here in the top left-hand corner, working with both our centers of expertise, focused predominantly on policy, strategy, standards, and our staff and student service centers, both providing, along with our service partners, that direct interface to the community and linking that back to the transaction processing hub. So just provide this slide as a wee bit of context, and I will turn it over now to Wayne and Demetres for their opening remarks.
Great, thank you, Todd. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your attendance here today. Great to see so many faces. I just want to step back 1 second and just acknowledge that we are located on Treaty 6 territory, and we respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant community. So thank you everyone for joining us today. On December 10th, just before the winter break, the Service Excellence Transformation team released the new SET Transition Plan. It's a document which helps to describe how we are moving to transition roles, responsibilities, and people into the new operating model. You can find that document and the plan on the SET website. So I encourage you to go look at that document when you have an opportunity to do so. In alignment with that plan, Human Resources has been moving forward to imagine how the structure needs to adapt to meet the goals of U of A for tomorrow. Financial stability, service excellence, and making sure that the university can focus on delivering its core service of research and academic excellence. Throughout this process, we are consulting with our unions to ensure that they are informed about our plans and the decisions being made and the actions taken to implement the new model. So we will ensure that we follow all of our respective employment practices and processes outlined within our collective agreements, our handbooks, our policies, and our procedures. And today what we'd like to do is share a draft of the operating model for human resources function specifically to help visualize some of the changes. So if I can ask for the next slide. So in our new operating model, it will allow delivering those HR services across the campus, including those within the Human Resources, Health, Safety, and Environment unit, with our service partnership teams, with our faculty relations unit, and with the faculties, the colleges, and the departments, working together to promote and exemplify excellence in human resources practices that are responsive, that are innovative, equitable, effective, and efficient, to ensure that our people and our faculty and staff and our employed students are all happy, healthy, engaged, and supported. But there's several key elements to ensuring success within our new model. So in the diagram that's shown, our 5 centers of expertise will provide specialized services to the colleges, to the faculties, and the service units across our campuses in several areas, including organizational design and talent acquisition, So this unit supports the U of A's job design, our organizational structure planning, our job evaluation, talent recruitment acquisition, compensation, and our workforce planning functions. We'll also have our Leadership and Professional Development Center of Expertise. This team designs and delivers both university-wide and faculty unit-specific programs and services to foster that culture of excellence by enriching learning and professional development opportunities for our faculty, staff, and our postdoctoral fellows. Our Well-Being, Culture, and Rewards Center role is to support the engagement and well-being of our organization to ensure a positive university workplace culture with healthy people that feel rewarded and engaged. Our Health and Safety function works around ensuring that our people who work, who learn, who teach, who research, and who also live on our university campuses are safe and protected from the risks and hazards that exist within this very large and potentially dangerous organization we work within. And our labor relations team, also working closely with our centers of expertise, our faculty relations office, and the office of the provost, is responsible for collective bargaining and supporting our labor relations and employee relations needs. So these teams, working very closely together, will best serve our collective clients across the organization as centers of expertise. With the goal of better integrating and streamlining the HR transactional services and processes from across the university, some of our human resource functions will soon be delivered within the shared services unit. You'll hear a little bit more about that later as Cheryl speaks, but the HR business services unit, which includes our employment services, payroll, time and labor, benefit services teams, they'll be transferring over to the transaction, the processing hub, and some functions within our talent acquisition and immigration services units will also be incorporated into those sectors. So we'll look at all of that and talk a little bit more about it later. So the new model will also allow, will better position our leaders and our employees within our faculties and our units by aligning all of our HR partners into the new service partnership team as well. So I'd like to turn it over now to Demetres Tryphonopoulos, the Dean and Executive Officer of Augustana Campus, and our academic co-sponsor on the HR workstream to talk a little bit more about our partners.
If we could have, please, the next slide, and then I can begin. Thank you very much, Wayne. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited about the changes in HR that we are discussing today, and I'm confident that they'll be of considerable and necessary consequence. This constitutes a critical moment in our history, as we all realize, of course, and SET is a transformational exercise that will determine in several ways and will improve the future prospects of our institution. I view this transformation in HR as an exceptional opportunity to align the human resource functions across the university so as to serve better our leaders, our faculty, and our staff. For several years now, we've been fortunate to have had HR partners embedded within faculties and units across our campuses and within human resource services. The establishment of the HR service partnership team and the enhancements to the HR service partners function will create opportunities to improve the services provided to our leadership teams, but also to all employees across the university. The new HR service partner function or role will ensure that individually and collectively we receive timely, strategic, and client-focused HR advice and expertise directly within our faculties and our units. What does this change look like? What is the big difference, you may ask? While we have HR partners in various forms today, the new model, as slide 4 on the HR service partner structure indicates, will ensure more standardization in the services provided with connections back to the centers of expertise that Wayne talked about. The HR service partners will be better supported centrally, and they will be reporting to senior HR service partners who in turn will report to the Director of HR service partnerships to ensure that we each receive the highest level of professional service. With the introduction of the new college model, we will align the HR service partners into teams, each supported by a senior HR service partner. Each college will have a senior partner and a team of service partners. The individual faculties of Native Studies, Campus Saint-Jean and my own at Augustana will also be assigned senior partners. The same will be the case for the other VP Vice President portfolios, as well as for individual units. Every unit on campus, therefore, will be supported by an HR partner. The number of partners within each area will depend on the size, the scope, and the complexity of the faculties themselves and of the units which these partners will serve. Overall, there will be up to 33 partners serving the HR needs of the university. This new model is designed so as to allow each faculty or unit to receive enhanced services. When COVID ends, and that can be too soon, I guess, the intent is for our HR partners to be physically located within our offices, close to the leaders and the individuals they are serving. They will actually participate in our leadership teams offering strategic advice and support. HR partners will work closely with the faculty general managers and act as the liaison with the centers and with shared services to ensure that our HR needs are seamlessly met, allowing us to focus on our academic mission. While we won't be funding the HR partners from our budgets or have direct supervisor reporting relationship for them, I'm confident that our partnerships with Wayne's unit will ensure that our service expectations will be met. It may feel like faculties will lose some level of control with this new model. However, the economies of scale that can be realized through consolidating HR services at the center and with shared services and by standardizing roles and responsibilities will make it possible for HR to implement best practices in recruitment, in succession planning, in learning and development, and so on. And in the end, that will be a benefit to all of us. To conclude, and before I invite Wayne to continue with his presentation, let me say that consolidating HR services at shared service and standardizing roles and responsibilities will help us introduce improvements in the timely delivery of service solutions, will emphasize client-focused services, will deliver cost and administrative efficiencies, and will achieve overall satisfaction, personal and institutional. Next, Wayne will be discussing the transition to the new model and provide an overview of the project plan. Wayne?
Great, thanks, Demetres. So as we begin to implement the new HR operating model, there are a number of steps that we will have to go through over the coming weeks and months ahead. So Demetres and I have been working to finalize our HR service catalog. That catalog defines which services will be delivered by the HR group and within which team within the HR group as well, which component of the model. The SET project team have been working to better understand what HR activities are currently performed within the faculties and the units, and which are being managed centrally as well. So my leadership team with the SET team has been looking at how to best align our HR services and our functions, our structure, and our people within this new model. And within the new SEP model as well, we expect that approximately 30% of the university's HR functions and work is intended to move from those faculties and units to the center, either at the shared service center or within the HR-HSC portfolio. This will lead to the creation or transfer of a number of roles to the center. These will include HR Human Resource Service Partner roles, the Staff Service Center roles in the Transaction Hub. New openings are expected to be posted as expressions of interest or job postings and will be posted on our U of A careers website, and a number of direct appointments will also occur depending on the type of position. None of these changes are happening overnight though. It's there's a lot of steps that have to go into this. So to paint a clearer picture, let's take a look at an overview of what the timing looks like for the next few months. So if we can ask for the next slide, please. One of the first priorities is to fill the Director of HR Service Partnerships. So that role is currently open for recruitment right now. We're in the process of interviewing for that. We expect it to be filled within a few weeks. By the end of January, we'll also be looking at our HR Service Partnership team, and we'll start to begin the process of filling the senior partnership roles. Along with that, we'll be assigning the senior partners and the service partners to the respective colleges and faculty. So that will happen over the next 2 to 3 weeks as well, expected. My intent as much as possible is to preserve the relationships that existing HR partners already have with the clients they serve. However, there may need to be some shifting to best manage the distribution of partners to best service each new college and vice president portfolio area. In cases where partners need to be shifted, we're certainly going to discuss those shifts directly with the partners and with the faculty deans and unit leads that are going to be served. I will also ask for decanal or other leadership participation in the selection of partners to ensure that we get a good match between partner and clients they're serving. And then after that, we're going to start looking at implementing the required changes to the HR centers of expertise. So realigning services within those areas and appointing people to their new roles. Over the coming months, we'll post any new openings for new positions that are needed to ensure the continuity and the expansion of HR services at the same time. So, as I said earlier, a very important of this new model is the Shared Services Center. Leading the establishment of that center is Cheryl Earle. So I'd like to turn it over to her to give a little bit more information about that process.
Thanks, Wayne. I think one of the important things for us to remember and understand about a transition to a shared services model is that we're going to have to redesign our processes. We won't be able to operate the way we do today. And we recognize that this could take some time. And we've developed a process that allows us to be iterative as we move through things and ensure that we can be agile and develop a phased implementation over time. Many of you have participated in the HR discovery process before Christmas, and we're currently using that information to help prioritize the processes that we should focus on in redesigning as part of our HR functional review phase, which is on the slide there right now. This phase will actually begin early in February, and it's where we'll start to engage with the staff that are currently doing the work. We recognize that many of you are the subject matter experts in these processes, and we need to ensure that you've got an opportunity to be part of the working groups and help us redesign these processes end to end. The functional reviews will include design workshops, we'll pilot activities and processes, and we'll gather feedback along the way and adapt as appropriate. Once we're confident that the new processes will work, we'll plan the transition plans. This approach not only helps us define the new processes, but it will also help us identify the training and the resources required to deliver them. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, as Wayne said, and we appreciate your patience as we plan our next phases.
Thank you, Cheryl, Wayne, and Demetres. Let's get on with our questions. I know that's what we're here for. We did want to provide the overview presentation that we have, as I think it provides some context, much needed context that I know individuals are looking for. So to get us started with our discussion, I'm pleased to welcome Catherine Mera, Human Resources Advisor with Information Services and Technology, to today's session to ask the first question of our panel. Over to you, Catherine.
Hi, Todd. Thank you. So a few questions came up before you touched on this in your opening remarks. I was wondering, what is the career advancement trajectory within the new model? It seems like most HR generalists would fall into the service centers or transaction hubs. Will there be different grades within these hubs other than team leads and managers?
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. I'm gonna turn some of that question over to Cheryl for some of the detail, but just before that, I would like to address the issue of what does it mean for career growth for professionals that may currently reside within faculties or units or portfolios. What does that mean when you move to the center? I've heard that people are concerned that it actually means less career opportunity, less growth. I would actually suggest to the group that it offers a greater potential. So imagine now, rather than working for a component of the whole, you are now working for the broader university. You are working under the UAT vision of one university, designing and working for U of A for tomorrow. And that provides you with greater opportunity for exposure, initiatives, learning the broader business across the entirety of the university, and having access to growth opportunities, not only within the central groups, but potentially looking to take your career at some point back into a portfolio or back into a college or back into a faculty or unit after you have had an opportunity to experience and develop skill sets elsewhere. So I would offer to the group that that yes, this transition will impact some individuals, but I encourage us to take a look at it from what is the possibility, and with respect to career growth, I would argue that there is a significant opportunity for professionals as individuals. Cheryl, that's my broader perspective. I'll turn it over to you to answer some of Catherine's more detailed questions.
Thanks, and that's a great question, Catherine. One of the things, and we don't necessarily know all of the roles today, but the intent of the functional review is to leverage technology as much as possible in the redesign of our processes. And hopefully that will enable us to reduce and eliminate a lot of the kind of redundant manual work that occurs today, both at the center and in the faculties. Although we haven't actually redefined or have a definition of what the roles will be, we are intending to focus that activity on the value-added work. And we want to ensure some of the principles that we're guiding that work, redesign work by, is to ensure that we're having rewarding work experiences for staff, as well as structuring in such a way that there will be opportunity, as Todd mentioned, both laterally and upwards within the organization. So I think that that's something that we're very conscious of and something that we're committed to ensuring as we work our way through this process.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. So we're going to now go to open questions. I've learned to understand myself in just the last number of days that Zoom has changed the way to raise your hand for some of you. If you have the latest version, you find that under reactions now across the bottom. There's a raise hand button. Some of you may still be on the previous update version where it is in the participants list. So it may look like a blue hand or a yellow hand. And we've got a couple up. We'll start with Kathleen.
Hello.
Hi, Kathleen.
First, I wanted to let you know that I did ask this question in a records management webinar in December, and they were unfortunately unable to answer. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to bring it up here, specifically pertaining to records management. So the university does not have a standardized records management process, in particular, for example, personnel files, and each unit, and in some cases, each individual in a unit decides how they'd like to retain their files. In recognizing that HR will be shifting and combining roles and physically moving potentially within the next couple of years, what processes will be put in place to facilitate the transition of information, both physically and electronically, so HR professionals can hit the ground running in their new roles?
Thank you, Kathleen. Fantastic question. I'm going to maybe start with Wayne and see what thoughts Wayne may have on that question.
Great, thanks, Kathleen, for that question. It is certainly a great question. I mean, as you've identified, there are a number of different processes and practices across our campuses about how we manage employee personnel records. And we've been working closely with the Office of Records and Information Management Privacy for the last year or so, as we are creating within the Alfresco, University's Alfresco Electronic Records Management System, we're creating a series of standards and creating a series of practices that we hope to then deploy across the campuses, and so that all of those records will move from paper format into the electronic format. And the advantage of doing that is exactly what you're talking about. We'll have some standardization in how we capture the records, We'll reduce the duplication of capturing those records. Instead of having a personnel file within human resource services, within the shared center, within the faculties and units, we'll be able to have one file that various people can access depending on their need to see what information on that file. So we're working on that right now. We've piloted it within human resource services, starting with our personnel records for some groups of employees. And Fatima Mirza's team, the director of HR Business Services, is kind of leading that through our office. And that will become part of the new process as we go forward. So we'll share more information about that in the weeks ahead.
Todd, can I add something to that?
Please, Demetres.
I've only been at the U of A for 18 months, and I'm struck by the fact that different faculties and different units do things differently. And so I see this as a great opportunity to standardize processes and to make sure that the same security that is offered in a unit that does a good job with this kind of thing is also offered to people across the campus. So it seems to me, I mean, that's an excellent question, Kathleen, because it also gives us the opportunity to say that we can actually take this and make improvements on what we've been doing so far. So there will be some difficulties, there will be a transition period, but in the end, I think everybody's going to be served, in a better way.
Thank you, Demetres, Wayne, and thank you, Kathleen, for the question. I would only add that while it's been a number of years since I practiced at the level where I needed to go pull an employee file, actually that would have been when they were paper files, but the ability to log into an electronic database and access that information, whether you be the employee, their manager, their business partner, somebody in the transaction hub or service center, is just not only more efficient, it's more accurate and will allow us to provide better, more accurate service. So definitely a step, I would say, in the right direction. Thank you for the question. I will go to Karen, please.
Thanks for that. I am Karen Gibbons from the School of Public Health. I'm wondering if there's any sort of sense of the numbers specifically that will be applied to HR rules in terms of the layoffs. Like we have a number of 325 layoffs this fiscal year, 325 next fiscal year, and I'm wondering if we have a percentage, if we know a percentage that will be specifically HR rules. Yeah, that's my question.
Thank you, Karen. I'm probably going to turn that over to Wayne, maybe some combination of Wayne and Rob, but just before I do, I just want to, I'll say, socialize a little bit on the data. So yes, you're correct. When we take the dollar value that we need to save by the end of this fiscal being $30 million, and you utilize the average annual earnings with benefits that we had done our calculations on, it did work out to 325. As we found as we have gone along, that average has strayed a little bit. It's a little bit lower. And so I do just want to, just socialize with folks that I've actually started to talk more so about the dollar value as opposed to the FT. And it's not because I'm avoiding or ignoring those individual impacts, but that number is going to fluctuate a little bit just as we move into the end of the year. Wayne, maybe start with you, put Rob on notice. I don't know that we can talk necessarily about the number of reduction, but I think we can share some information about the number of positions that we are seeing in the new structure.
So certainly, thanks, Karen, for your question as well, and congratulations on some new achievements that you've recently received in getting your benefits designation as well. So great job on that. So it's a bit of a difficult question to answer in the sense that a lot of work is still being done to try to really understand who is doing what work in various functions across the campus, right? So the SET project team is continuing to delve into the discovery work that happened in mid-December, and they're taking a look at all of those various functions and trying to determine where those roles are going to align into the new structure. They're going through that process right now. We do know that a significant number of roles will transfer from the faculties and centers, faculties and units across campus into what we're calling the center. center. So the shared services unit and or human resources, health, safety, and environment. So within our new model, for instance, there'll be a number of opportunities for partners to join the partnership team and to encourage some growth and development of people that can come into that area. There will be some new positions within some of the centers of expertise as well that we're working on defining right now. And then there'll be a number of positions within the central shared services teams to support those functions of employment life cycle, to support the payroll functions, the benefit functions, et cetera, right? So in terms of the number of people directly going to be laid off, I don't think we know that yet. We've not done that analysis. We do expect about 55 new roles to be created in the center. We've shared that before. We're just going through the process of determining exactly where they're needed to best align to the needs, though. There's still quite a bit of work being done in that area to make sure that we've got the right positions in the right places to make sure that all the work can get done.
And I would add, thank you, and I would add that part of the reason why that detail can't be provided is we are still working our way through the functional review and transition processes. And so, Rob, do you want to just mention a little bit about the timing of that for HR?
So I can give a little bit of a number. So like Wayne commented that there's going to be like 55 positions that are going to move. We are using Cubane information as FTE targets. So that ends up being, so you have to be careful when you're talking about FTE because that's people have coded part of their time towards HR. So from a total perspective of what the reduction would be in an FTE, when you evaluate that way from Cubane, it in addition is about 55 people that would be reduced. That's the reduction in total that we'd see. Now that of course is, again, a number of people have coded into that function. So you have to go through the entire process in order to ultimately make the changes. Wayne talked about bringing people to the center and then reduce our overall effort by the amount that I just listed. Timing, we are in the process. We're doing discovery and the functional reviews right now. So those processes help inform us of when we're going to do the transition. Within the HR team, as Wayne mentioned, we're hiring a number of the positions right now. The director of partners, the service partners will be coming, and then shortly thereafter we'll start into the process in the new year, in the new fiscal year, of moving people into the centers of expertise. And that process will go on for several months because it'll be process by process, function by function that we start moving into the center. But that's the kind of starting time frame of it.
Excellent, thank you. Great question, and thank you for the answers. We'll move on to Stephanie, please.
Thank you. So I'm within a department as an APO, so at least half of my position is HR and more of a generalist role. So my question is, how is that priority being determined of who's being transitioned into Center of Excellence roles, especially when departments are kind of included in those faculty numbers? And how are you determining whether or not people's qualifications match to what those new requirements are? So for example, as an APO, having my CPHR designation is not a requirement of my current job, but could provide an advantage in one of those partnership level positions in the faculty or a center of excellence. So just curious how that mapping is going to be communicated to staff so that we're aware of opportunities. Because by the time you get down to the department level, theoretically, all of those other positions would have either been determined either through postings or direct transfers of eliminated positions.
Thank you, Stephanie. Great question, right to the point of things. Annette, would you like to start us off on that one?
Sure, I can start, and then if any of the panelists want to add. So it is a very good question, and that's something that we're working through the process for expressions of interest, how that will work, qualifications, and I'll maybe just start a bit with qualifications to your comment and how that will map over. So we are working on job families and working through so we have more generic job families to work from in the future, so that every time a position needs to be created, we don't have to create those job descriptions, and they don't have to be individualized every time, so that there'll be job matrices and job families that we can work from. So that work is happening, and there's a lot of transition in that space. So that's part of how we'll standardize some of the roles, make it simpler moving forward. As far as process and expressions of interest, so timing of how we'll post and we'll move positions is very important. And we're being very considerate on how we do that to make sure people all have opportunities to the roles that they'd be qualified for or interested in. One of the things that we're looking at is currently expressions of interest typically are held within a department, faculty, or unit, so that expressions of interest is currently restricted to those areas. What we'd like to do is open that up because there's a larger impact to these expressions of interest, posting those through the career page so that everyone has better visibility in them and have an opportunity to apply. So we're still in negotiation with or discussion with some of those things with NASA and ASHWA, but that is the process that we're looking to have is on the careers page and also on the functional stream so that people can see what opportunities are available.
Thank you, Annette. We'll see if anybody has anything to add to that, but first, unless Stephanie's dog was jumping up, that's a really big dog because his head was level with yours. So.
Yes, sorry, it's like dogs are like children, right? You finally get the children somewhere else, but then the dogs say, oh, you're busy, let me jump up and see what you're doing. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. Last March, those sorts of things were a little bit more odd, but now it's just commonplace. Thank you, Annette. Does anybody have anything that they would like to add to Annette's answer? It was a good answer.
Just to add that I think the significant opportunity through this new operating model allows us to look across the institution and identify people all across the institution that have the real career aspirations in human resources, right? And all those aspects of human resources as well. And identify people that, and while maybe they haven't worked in HR for 20 years, but they're someone that really cares about this field and really wants to get a good start, it allows us an opportunity through those expressions of interest process to identify those people and to learn about how each individual can bring different kinds of value to the institution, right? And to place them in the right roles. I mean, in my past, I've worked in HR now for 30 years. If it wasn't for some managers that identified some skill in me, I wouldn't be sitting where I am today, right? It would be people that said, hey, you've got an aspiration, you've got some interest. It might not be something that you did before, but I think you could be good at this. And doing that allows people to get into the right places where they continue to grow and develop their careers, right? And the new model will allow us to do that. I think Demetres identified that earlier as well as Todd, in terms of being able to maybe move from different types of positions within the new HR operating model, right? So we don't expect people to enter one piece of a role and stay there for their entire career. We would actually actively encourage people to move and to gain different experiences within the field of human resources, right? So, and all those things we consider HR.
Thank you.
And if I can add something to what Wayne said, I mean, absolutely. I think that, you know, we cannot look away from the fact that there will be changes, and that change also means that layoffs and all the other things. But I think one has to be proactive, one has to be ambitious, one has to be willing to try something new. And then, you know, Wayne is absolutely right that there will be opportunities. I think that we should look at the whole process, and that's how I've been looking at this as a way of providing opportunities for our best people to advance their careers. And so I would advise everyone on this call to keep looking at those publications, the announcements rather, of the positions, and to imagine yourselves in perhaps a different position. Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Demetres. I just want to punctuate one point. So many may be aware that the senior leadership of the university had a retreat day yesterday, and we spent the day together. One item that we spent, I think, about 3 hours on was set and some of this conversation. And I'll tell you that we had a really good, although maybe emerging, but a really good conversation on the concept of enabling talent across the university, and building our capacity across the university, allowing people to move around, get that exposure, get that experience, pursue different career paths, as Wayne has talked about in HR or finance. You know, you may take that exposure and that experience and that skill set back into a more general role, or back into different aspects of the operations at the university somewhere down the road. But it does provide us in this means an opportunity, a little bit more flexibility and ability to enable that movement at the highest level of the university as a whole. So go to Kathleen, and I'll just acknowledge that we need some more yellow hands up there. So give some thought, whatever your questions are. Today's the day to ask them. And over to you, Kathleen, please.
Hi, my name is Kathleen, and I work in the Faculty of Engineering. It's nice to see everybody, all the familiar faces. I am here because it says Ask Anything Set, and so I have a couple Ask Anything Sets, if that's okay. A couple. Demetres, you started off, and I wasn't quite sure what I heard. We were talking about the HR partner, and you were talking about their salary. Is it the faculty pays the salary, or does the central pay the HR partner salary?
I can maybe just respond to that one. So under the new model, using partners as an example, they will report in directly into their central team and be paid for out of central.
Okay, great, thanks. That was the quick question. The other one is maybe not so quick. So I think I heard you say, starting off, I know it's a little, I don't know if you use the word frustrating, but you know, in a time of change, right? You want answers, and so probably the question I'm going to ask is, Kathleen, we don't know yet, but we're working on it. So, and I also heard Demetres say that he's been here 18 years, and he's seen that everybody does a little things differently in different areas. Yeah. So my question is more about we might do little things differently. So in our Faculty of Engineering, and I was also looking at your diagram about where the requests come in, and it goes to the HR partner, and then it goes to the hub. So I was just wondering if the clarity of that process has been identified, and maybe I'll just set the stage a little bit. So in the Faculty of Engineering, we use engineering software. So a PI might want to hire somebody, and they enter it into our software system, and many of them route electronically to get signatures. So it's automatically populated with the amount, etc., and they get electronic signatures. And our team then takes that, and right now we enter the e-forms. And we're working on an RPA right now, actually, with the team to actually get the graduate students in a bot, so we don't have to actually enter the e-forms, which is fantastic, talking about automation. My question to you is, we have this system, and the system is quite functional and actually really, really good. And so when I look at our process and say, okay, the PI puts it into our engineering system, yet your process says it goes to HRP, which is Aneta. I'm just curious, is there any mapping overlapping that yet, or can you answer that at all at this point in time?
So I think we can. Just a couple things for clarity. First of all, Demetres has been here 18 months. Not 18 years, just as
oh, sorry, months, years. Oh.
He might feel like it's more than 18 months, but I'm sure he doesn't think 18 years. So then beyond that, I'm actually going to ask Cheryl to just chime in with your example of recruitment, and then I might have a few things to add. But Cheryl, can you just talk about how we would envision the recruitment cycle?
Thanks, Kathleen. And I am familiar that you guys have a number of systems in engineering. One of the things that we really do need to focus on as we transition to shared services is getting some standardization in process across the institution. Although the image that was, I think, on the slide that was showed the interaction going through the HR partner, that's just an illustration. It's not intended to actually represent any process that's been designed. We actually are in the stages of planning which processes we'll be looking at first, but we're actually going to be looking at redesigning all of our processes, and we actually would be looking to engage representatives from engineering on some of those working groups. Given that you do have some automation, we'll be looking to leverage that knowledge and making sure that any of the processes that we design and redesign for the institution leverage that kind of thinking along the way. So it will be looking at things like automated routing, e-signatures, capturing data so that there's not duplicate data entry, leveraging the fact that you are actually already working on the bot, and where might we actually be able to leverage that and use that elsewhere in the institution. So it's not so much necessarily redoing all the work you've done, but leveraging the learnings that you have and leveraging some of the stuff that you've already done.
Okay, thank you. So it's, yeah, I totally understanding now they're two different things. They're not overlapping exactly. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathleen. It just occurs to me listening to the conversation that the word bot has just become commonplace in our vernacular these days. It wasn't very many years ago. You would have no idea what that is. Brian, did you have something you want to
Yeah, I just want to add to that in terms of what Cheryl was talking about, the standardization. And we do need to introduce this across the institution, because what's happened is, and Kathleen, you know, all power to engineering for what they've done in terms of automating their area and improving the efficiency in the area. We have to take that, you know, broadly, because what happens is we get a fractured system where bits of it work and bits of it don't work, and the university as a whole doesn't work. And then if we want to improve service for, you know, the broader population, we can't, because it's fractured and bits take an awful lot longer to align, to improve, rather than if we have a standardized process. So the standardization is one of the key benefits that we will have to get from SET. Otherwise, the university can't move forward en masse, and we won't be able to improve the service levels that we have, simply because there'll be bits all over the place that we can't move on. So it is a very important component, what Cheryl said there, in terms of standardization.
And I would add that while some of those details probably on exactly how things will work are yet to be figured out, the intention would be is that it's an end-to-end system that works for all. So, you know, we'll look to leverage off of some of the more advanced areas like engineering, but the intention would be that it's the same system from end to end across all. Thank you very much, Kathleen, Brian, and Cheryl. Let's go to Kathleen again. Another Kathleen. I should have been using last names as well.
That's okay. I now work in the faculty of medicine and oncology, but I did come from engineering, and I can attest to the functionality of that system. And I used to work with Kathleen. But my question goes back to that. You know, there are some faculties in areas that have already amalgamated their support services, such as HR. So I came from a team in engineering that had taken all their department HR and put them into a central function at the faculty level. And I do know that some other areas have done similar things, you know, in varying areas. So what I'm going to ask is did you go through a process of reviewing areas where that had already occurred, some of this work, and what did you learn in that process?
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Good question. I'm going to start with Rob on that question, I think.
Oh, yeah, no, thanks, Kathleen. Yeah, really good question. We have reached out to all of the different areas to understand their current state, what has worked well for them, what has not worked well, in order to gain their experiences to inform us on our decisions going forward. So it's similar to what Cheryl mentioned before. So again, an engineering system that is working really well, automation, we want to learn from that experience and apply it across the entire university where appropriate.
Thank you, Rob. Just if others want to answer, you know, Annette, Wayne in particular, but I would just add also, Kathleen, is that the model just, and I think everybody gets this, but just to be clear, right, is that the model actually amalgamates those services at the central level. And then if I use partners, the service partners as an example, in the academic faculty area, there will be an interface, if I can call it that, at the college level, and then an alignment or an assignment of those resources with faculties, just again, only using the college faculty alignment as an example. And so those services will reside with the people that they serve, but they'll be all aligned back to central. Anybody else want to add to that answer for Kathleen?
I was just going to add one thing, if I could, Todd, just about the discovery process that we undertook for HR, and that did engage the different faculties and units about their current processes, and we're in the point now of understanding that data and using it to prioritize service transformations or service changes, process changes. So we did go out and ask some of those questions about how do you currently do things, what do you use, who approves, all of those kind of details to understand. So just wanted to clarify that as well.
Thank you, Annette. All right, let's move to Kim.
Hi, my question is about the timeline of potential layoffs and expressions of interest. Like how will I know if my job is moving, if I will be transferred to a center of expertise, or if I need to be applying, or if
Thank
how
you.
do I know what to do?
Thanks, Kim. And I think sessions like today are intended to start that communication. And while the picture is starting to become clearer on some of these processes, we're not 100% there yet. But maybe I'll start this one with Annette. Do you want to start with that?
Yes, so a bit of a lead from my last comment about the prioritization and understanding that what we're doing with some of that information is helping the hub, for instance, HR, the centers, prioritize and gather information so they can develop new roles if necessary, and what those look like based on the processes that we are compiling and gathering. So when those new roles are identified, looking at Wayne's information that he's talked about the different centers of expertise, prioritizing those positions, and then understanding what encompasses new roles. So we need to understand that to look at what maps from current roles and existing roles and what are new, and then when does that trigger that expressions of interest process. So all of that work is happening as we speak, and Wayne's slide looked a little bit, or spoke a little bit to the timelines for the HR process and some of that.
Thank you, Annette. Wayne, I'm going to offer you an opportunity to comment there, and as well, my apologies. I believe you had a further answer to Kathleen from engineering's previous question that I neglected to notice. So over to you.
Okay, thanks, Todd. Just to add, I guess, as Annette has said, I mean, it'll be important that we look at each one of those roles across the campus. And there are a number of other roles being designed as well in the process right now. So there are somebody mentioned job families earlier. There are a number of roles being defined within those job families, within the HR job family, and then within the other job families, there are going to be roles and work that continues to reside at the faculty. So if someone today is an APO or an associate chair, or they're in some types of roles, those may not be in any way impacted by this or not, right? Those things are still being discussed and looked at as we determine what those roles need to look like. If your function of or if your primary focus of your role is on HR, then those are the roles that we're closely looking at right now and trying to determine how that work should be done in the new model and across all of the elements of the new model. So it's hard to answer specifically because it really comes down to looking at exactly what work is being done where. And that's the work that Annette and Cheryl and others are doing right now on the project to understand that. So we don't have all the answers to those questions today. We will soon, but not today. So just to add to the other thing, I mean, what's really important to us as well as we go through this process, though, is to get your input in it and to understand what it is that you're doing. So part of that was through the discovery, but if there are things that we haven't learned yet, it's important that we know about that as well. So we ask you to make sure that we do understand where there are really well-defined processes or where certain pockets of work are sitting, etc. If we've not already been shared that information, it's really important that we understand that because we need the collective input of everybody to build the best model going forward, right? And it's none of us have all the answers. Well, none of us have the crystal ball. We're all going to need to come together and try to figure it out together and figure out what's going to work for this campus, right? So to make a really well, efficient, effective, and an engaging workplace where we're all contributing, right? So.
Thank you, Wayne, and thank you, Kim, for the question. I'll also just note that there will be working groups that will be set up from each area to help us understand further.
Could I make a comment and it's more of a question because I'm trying to clarify this in my mind. My understanding is that we do know how many FTEs we have to reduce our workforce by this time around, but individual faculties and units may not know who those people might be. And that clarity needs to come sooner rather than later. Am I right in my thinking about this? Because I think that may have been the question that was asked as well.
So I think the short answer to that question is probably yes, Demetres. There are some things that are not yet known, and I will just note that phase 2, if I can call it that, which runs into 2021, is where we start to see a lot of the staff transferring, and that is, or the work transferring and the services transferring, and as a result, staff transferring. And before those detailed plans can be put together, the functional review process and the process redesign work needs to be done so we know what's moving where and what is required. We are pretty much at our time. We have one more hand up. Brenda, let's ask and answer your question and then we'll wrap things up.
Thank you for this opportunity, Todd. And my name is Brenda with Faculty of Engineering. I understand that engineering has a system that the university is reviewing. My question is, you know, as an HR advisor, I find it very challenging in working with some of our systems such as HCM and campus solutions. And, you know, as we speak about more effective and efficient systems and processes, I was wondering if there has been any considerations in a review of our central systems and whatnot.
Yeah, from a technology perspective, I'll ask Cheryl to probably chime in if I get this wrong. We will be taking a look at some technology components. Our ERP system, our PeopleSoft system, right, is a large system that the entity has a lot of capital dollars invested in. Those aren't things that you change easily from either a capital or an effort perspective. However, I think that we do need to work as we implement new systems to ensure that that technology is actually enabling and not hindering, you know, the interface, if you will, with its users. And as we look to increase and leverage some of that technology through self-serve portals and self-serve functionality that maybe initiates processes within the shared services and transaction hub area, we will need to make sure that those are as user-friendly as possible. Cheryl, is there anything that you would add to that?
Yeah, I would add just that we specifically have identified some enabling technologies that actually can sit and kind of wrap around PeopleSoft. As Todd mentioned, that CRP, it's a big investment and would be a significant thing to change. So what we're trying to do is build front end using some simpler applications that would enable some of the workflow, the electronic signatures and those things that are complementary to applications such as HCM, and make sure that we're streamlining that work.
If I could just add to that, a lot of the times we tend to blame systems when processes are at the heart of the problems, and we really have to look at the processes before we look at systems. We tend to look at systems as magic bullets. If you put a new system in, it'll solve the problem. When we find out that we've customized the structure of the system and that was inappropriate, we really do have to look at our processes before we look at system changes.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I was just going to add that we would be remiss if we did not, as we went through this process, identify, or through this transition, to identify those processes that are frustrating, that are overly bureaucratic, that slow us down, that drive us a bit crazy. We need to find those and we need to fix those. So you have our commitment on that, Brendan. Thank you very much for your question. Time flies. I didn't do a great job of moderating because we're already 3 minutes over. So I'd like to wrap up. I'd like to thank everybody for coming and sharing your honest feedback, your very good questions. I would leave the session today wondering if there are questions that have not been asked yet. I suspect that there are. I suspect that there are harder questions that that the team still is looking for answers to, and that is completely understandable and fair. Encourage you to keep asking those questions. We will continue to find forums in which to do that. Our Ask Set Anythings will continue. Our next one is on February 1st. It happens to be for the finance stream. We'll also be doing broadly monthly Ask Set Anything, sort of all staff editions. We haven't nailed down dates yet, but I would suggest that we're going to cycle back at least once or twice more with these for each stream. So our colleagues in HR, you can anticipate having more of these. I will ask, Betty has a link. I'll ask you to put that in the chat box right now. I believe that that link is related to where to ask questions, but Betty can correct me if I'm wrong. In the absence of anything else, feel free to reach out to any of the members on our panel today. I'm seeing chat is disabled right now, so we can't do that. We will get that information posted on the website. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to anyone on our panel today, including myself. We are happy to answer individual questions as well. So in closing, thank you to those of you that participated in the Zoom room, as well as those on our live stream. We look forward to continuing the conversation and sharing more information. And I wish you all a great end to your day. Thank you so much.